Hello everyone, we're back again today. Welcome. Today I'm going to teach you the long forgotten traditional Hakka dish called the Abacus Beads or the Taro Parcels. First up, we're going to show you the ingredients that we'll be needing for today's cook. For the amounts, please refer to the recipe that we've included below. We have here the taro, which is the hero of the dish. And then we've got the minced meat, which is pork that we're using. And we've got here what we call the kohlrabi in place of the yam bean. I've also got here a tiny little yam bean, which is very hard to come by. But instead of using yam bean, we can also use the kohlrabi, which is more readily available, plus it's a lot cheaper to use as well. Then we have got the carrots, the garlic, the sugar, the salt, and then we've got the chicken broth to serve up later on, the fresh coriander, the shiitake mushroom, the shredded cuttlefish, which you can get in packet like this from the Asian grocery shops. It comes dry, you have to soak it to soften it and then cut it a little bit shorter. And here we've got the clouds here. Again, it comes dry in packet like this. Again, we need to soak that and then chop it up fine. And that's where this is what it looks like. Then we've got the grated carrots, and that's the tapioca flour that we'll be using to knead into the steamed taro later on. And this is the cut up turnip that I've got, or kohlrabi or yam bean if you're using the yam bean. Then we've got the spring onion, and then the other condiments that we usually use for seasoning. The first step is to peel off the skin from the kohlrabi and the yam bean, which I'm also going to use together with the kohlrabi today. That's the yam bean, and all you have to do is peel off the skin, and if there's any brown bits that doesn't look quite good, you just cut it off. Next step is to prepare the yam for steaming. I've got one here that's still not been cut. I've cut some of them already to get it prepared early. So this is the yam. You can get it frozen in a packet as well from the Asian groceries. And all you have to do is just to cut it smaller so that it steams faster. You start off by doing this first because you need to have this dough kneaded, and then prepare. While it's steaming, you can then start preparing the filling. So this is the yam, and this is the taro, and I've got here, it's also somewhat like the taro, but it's the yam, and it comes in a really deep, vibrant purple color, and that's really another tuber vegetable, and we use this really more for the color to make it a brighter, gives it a brighter hue, because otherwise when this is steamed, it's a very dull grey and it doesn't look very attractive. And again, we cut it up in little pieces like that and steam it together. Right, I've got here now the steamer that's already with the water boiling. And I'm going to put this whole tray on top. You can see what I did was just water with a little stand in the water, and on goes the taro, and that's all you do, and you steam that for about 20 minutes. Now to prepare the filling, we first have to cut up the yam bean and the kohlrabi, and all you have to do is just shred it. And I like to cut mine to a bit like shorter, so that when you use it for the filling, it's easier to wrap. Otherwise the filling will be all over the place and makes it very difficult to wrap. And that's all you do. I'm now cutting out the kohlrabi just as I did with the yam bean. You can actually grate this instead of cutting it if you want to, because it doesn't bruise as easily as the yam bean. The yam bean tend to bruise a lot more easier, and when you grate it, you lose a lot of the water from the bruising. You can put that all together. I've got here now the already soaked cloud's yeast. So how they expand when they're soaked. Okay, and then what you do now is just to roughly chop it up. Now we're getting on to cooking the filling for the taro parcels. First, we put in half a cup of oil. And then the garlic. We cook till it's slightly golden brown, and then we add in the other things one by one. Okay, it's just turning golden brown now. So I'll first put in the cuttlefish. It will start to pop a little bit, but never mind. Then in goes the cloud's yeast. And the mushrooms. The mushrooms too have been cut and chopped up small. Then we add the meat. Now we put in all the veggies. The carrot, and the yam bean or kohlrabi. There's a mixture of both today. Okay, then in goes the salt and the sugar. Then a bit of soy sauce, maybe a teaspoon or so, and pepper, another teaspoon of pepper, and the fish sauce. Lastly, in goes the spring onion. If you find that there's a lot of juices left in the bottom, what you can do is you can put a little bit of corn flour mixed with water, like this one, and just thicken the sauce a little bit. And then that will bind the filling a little bit more, and get rid of the moisture as well. Okay, that's it. Okay, we're checking the yam and the taro, which has already been steaming for about 20 minutes, and we get it out from the steamer. Now we're going to mash the taro and the yam together, and what I'm doing now is to put in about a teaspoon of salt and also about a teaspoon of sugar. And then you have to try and mash it while it's hot, and then put the flour in. Then it will bind better when you add the flour in while the yam and the taro is still hot. See how vibrant the yam is, the color, the purple. You can see now the yam and the taro has been mashed up quite well, and look at the color, isn't it beautiful? So now what we do now is we add in the flour and knead the flour into this taro paste. Right, now the yam's all mashed up. You can still see little bits of lumps in it, but never mind. As we knead the dough in, we can feel the lumps and then break the lumps down as we knead. The lumps that cannot be broken down, we can always just, take it aside and throw it out. So now we dip in the flour, which is tapioca flour. And you work it into the mash slowly. You can feel the lumps that's not been broken down enough. Then as you do it and you feel that it's not broken down, what you can do is just remove that and put it aside. You really don't want any lumpy bits in the dough. The dough's almost done now. See, it's coming together, and it feels almost like when you're making gnocchi. It's a Chinese version of the Italian gnocchi. That's how it feels. And so we'll be ready soon to do the parcels and also the abacus beads. Now that the dough is ready, we just divide them into portions and then roll them up first into and I'll leave this for the abacus bead. Okay, after we've divided them into portion size, what we do is then we roll them into logs. And this is about how many inches, I would say, or how many centimeters? About 5 centimeters in diameter logs. Right. We leave them here, and that's it. Then we get ours prepared to do the parcels. To keep the dough moist, whilst we're doing whilst we're sort of doing one row, we wrap the rest up to keep it from drying up. So we take this one out and then we divide it out This will probably get us about 5. Okay, so cut that. Right. So we get the steamer going before we start wrapping the parcels. And what I've done really is the same thing as we did when we were steaming the taro. But I've got a tray here lined with the baking sheet, and then keep the water boiling while we do this parcel. So we put that aside, and then all we have to do is press that down into a disc. Try and get the edges a little bit thinner and keep the center a little bit thicker so it won't break in the center when you put the filling in. Then you lift it up. Put a bit of this filling into the center, and then we wrap it up. So that's one way of doing or serving. You make them into parcels and then steam it. That's why some people prefer the abacus beads, because the abacus beads, right, you can put less of the abacus beads to fry with more liu. Right, we've got this ready, 5 of them. We get to the steamer. The water's boiling. We just need to, some of the condensations come off already. So we just need to put the steaming hot. In there. And that steams for about maybe 12 minutes, 12 to 13 minutes. Now we're checking the steamer to see if the parcels are cooked. They should be cooked by now. We've got it there for quite a while. Right, so that's how it is. We'll just let it cool for a little bit before we dish it out, because it's very soft while it's hot, and it might break when we lift it out when it's too soft. So what we do next is, we've got a bit of homemade garlic oil. It's really just oil with a bit of garlic fried till it's golden brown, and we use that and just brush it. Firstly, to keep the pastry from drying up, and secondly, so that they won't get sort of stuck together when they serve in the bowl. And of course, the garlic oil will give it some extra flavor as well. That's it. So we gently lift that, put it on the bowl. And also I've got here, then we put a generous sprinkle of the fresh coriander and some spring onion over the top. Right, now to serve the taro parcel, the last thing to do is just to pour some chicken broth. That's it. And you serve it with some chili sauce. Now I'm going to show you how to make the abacus beads. Right, you get the same dough, roll it up, and then you just take little chunks. So divide them into little bits like that. And all you have to do is roll them out into little balls. This is how you do it. You just roll that into little balls. About 10 cents in diameter. This is how you do the abacus beads. You roll those little chunky beads into little balls, and then you hold it between your thumb and the index finger, or your middle finger, whichever is more convenient for you, and you just give it a gentle press in the middle, and then you get a little indentation on both sides of the ball, and that's how you make it look like the abacus beads. So now we're ready to cook the abacus beads, which really is just simply to put them in boiling water. As you can see, the way to tell that the abacus beads are cooked is when they start to float on top of the boiling water. So you take that out and you dunk it straight into a cold bath. And this will make the abacus beads a little bit more, the texture a little bit more chewy and springy as well. Now that the abacus beads cool down in the water bath, you just dish it out onto a bowl and get it ready for stir frying. Now I'm going to show you how to finish off cooking the abacus beads. And all you have to do is the same filling that we use for the parcels. We just dish some in there, the wok, to heat up. This filling, if there's any left over, you can just eat it as a dish with steamed rice or whatever, just as a vegetable dish. It's also very yummy with rice. So once the filling is heated up enough, all you have to do is keep the abacus beads in, and that's it. You stir fry. So once that's done, we put in a little bit more spring onion and then some coriander. It'd be good to just maybe break it up a little bit to get the flavor out. And that's it. And give it a toss. All done.